Hi, Lynn Watts here with Wyeth Wonder Dog Books. And today I'm going to be talking about how to use story to teach cooperation. One of the skills that certainly we spend a lot of time with, and get the whole book in there, um, in terms of talking with children. It seems like we're forever trying to help kids get along and to cooperate with each other. And one way to help them learn the skills that are necessary for that is to use a story. And as always, I'm going to suggest how to work the story into a lesson and also how you can then develop the lesson even further when you finish the story. So I'm going to use one of Wyeth's books as an example, but certainly you can find lots of books on cooperation and you can use some of the same techniques. So generally before I start a story with children, I give them some idea of what they can expect in the story. So in this story, it is about cooperation. And in the story, Wyeth is going to have some problems in terms of his friends and him cooperating. And what happens in this story is that his friends all decide to build a fort together, and Wyeth doesn't want to do that. That's not his idea of a fun time with his friends, at least not on this particular day. So you can start out by giving some idea about the story, and then you can ask the students to take a guess about what could happen next. Or you could ask students if they've ever had a problem like that, which I can assure you that they all have, where there's been a time where they and a friend want to do something different. They want to be together, they want to play together, but everybody, of course, wants their own way or has their own idea of how we should spend our time together. So you could have them give some examples of that. And then you can tell them to hold on to that thought because you're going to ask them later on in the story how they solved their problem with cooperation and getting along, and get some ideas from them on how Wyeth can solve his problem. Then, of course, you're going to start the story and you're going to read it at least up to the point where the friends are building the fort, and they are working together. You can point out some of the ways that they're working together. Wyeth, on the other hand, is sitting on the steps moping because he doesn't want to build a fort. And at that point, Max's mother, who is one of the characters in a lot of the books, comes out to talk to him about why he's sitting aside from the group. And he says he wanted to play frisbee, but they all decided to build a fort, and no one is paying any attention to him. Poor me, right? And so says, she kind of paraphrases and sums up what he has just said. Sounds like you all just had different ideas about what to do for fun. Maybe today is your day to be the superhero. You can pause at that point and talk about what is a superhero. You could talk about, are we all superheroes in some way? What are some superhero traits? You can bring it down kind of to an everyday sort of thing. So we're not talking about, Superman flying through the air, Spider-Man climbing on buildings, but do we all have some particular strengths that we can use in difficult situations? And what she points out to him when he says that he's not a super anything, he's just the left out kid. She says sometimes the superhero isn't the one that has superpowers. Sometimes it's the one that cooperates and works out problems. It's someone who thinks of others first. So at least in this situation, she's defining superhero as a super quality, an ability to get along with others and to figure out a way to work things out, even when maybe it's not in your own I wouldn't say best interest, but it's not what you want. It was not what you were hoping for in this particular situation. So then he goes on to find out how he can help. He gets involved in playing, building the fort. And then later on, there's even a payoff with that in terms of him getting to do what he wants to do later on. So you can build all of these things into the book. At the point where he decides that he is going to get involved with building the fort, I think you can talk about what are some solutions to situations where friends are not cooperating, where one person wants to do one thing and another. And you can certainly talk about all the different options. One, of course, is that Wyatt could leave and just play by himself. And that's certainly a okay option. It's not in any way hurting what's going on. It's not interfering with what they're doing. It is maybe perhaps a little lonely, but then sometimes we enjoy being by ourselves. So I think you can normalize all of the different possibilities, and you can help students just realize that there are always different choices in terms of cooperation and what that can look like. All right, so you would engage students throughout the book. I often, as I go along, read something, stop, get ideas, get input, and then read some more to see if what they have suggested works out in the story. Then, if you have more time, and I realize sometimes that's going to take up the entire time you have in a classroom, but you could break this lesson up into several different time periods. So you could read the book one time, and then the next time review what you read, and then actually do an activity. But if you want some ideas on cooperative kinds of things that you can do and how you can extend that particular lesson, there is a lesson plan in the Stories to Learn by lesson plans, which goes along with all the Wyatt books on cooperation. And so it includes a lot of the discussion, what you might talk about. And then there are different types of activities, depending just on how energetic you are and how energetic the classroom is and how much, what all you want to get involved in. So you can play games, and there are a couple of games that are suggested in here. There are lots of games that involve lots of cooperation. I would just say anytime you're going to do a game, you want to spend time ahead of time talking about what cooperation looks like. You're going to prepare them to think more along the lines of cooperation rather than competition, if that's appropriate for whatever the game that you're playing. And then after playing the game, you want to take some time to debrief and talk about how they use the idea of cooperation. What did that look like in this game? Did we cooperate? Did we not? How can we be better? That sort of thing. So games are often a great way to teach cooperation. If you want to do something that's a little more low key, and maybe it's just one of those days where, there's enough energy already and you want to do something a little quieter, this is a game or an activity that's actually in the back of the book and also in the lesson plan book, but you can do some sort of art activity. This particular one involves, and I'll show you the big picture here, taking the picture of the bandana that, Wyatt wears a bandana in all of the books. And so pairing students up and having them decorate the bandana. In other words, they can color it, create a design with it, and, just work together in terms of cooperation. One thing that I included in the lesson plan here is a little pre-coloring worksheet to talk about how they're going to be cooperative. Again, just to color, a bandana doesn't necessarily take the idea home in terms of cooperation, what that looks like in different settings. But in this particular one, there's some questions that they need to discuss and answer before they start. And then again, at the end, if you want, kids love to show their work, of course, and you can have them stand up, show what they colored, and then talk about how they cooperated together. So that was a lesson that I frequently did, and kids always enjoyed it, especially, the creative part. But cooperation, of course, is an important skill that I think that in many ways we need to emphasize so that kids know what that looks like in the different settings and how they can be cooperative within their class and with their classmates. So as always, thanks for all you do in the lives of young children, and thanks for listening.